Hi, Kenyan.
Hello.
How are
Uh,
you?
I'm doing very well, very well.
That's great to hear. Great to hear. So, as usual, thank you for joining us today and welcome back to our video series. We're very eager to dive into the world of business architecture and explore its impact on strategy execution. And we're now on measuring the organizational success. So, first, let's start with a broad perspective. So, first question is how can we leverage business architecture to create a comprehensive framework that not only tracks our progress but also allows us to quickly adapt our metrics as our strategic goals evolve?
This is a great topic because you have many organizations that are really seeking to understand how they can measure how well they're doing.
Yes.
Without being able to track those outcomes, without being able to identify what are those key performance indicators,
Mhm.
there's really little ability to show or display exactly how well you're doing, or to define or identify whether you are moving in the right direction towards success or not. So, business architecture is really good in this frame because it's already delivering this very holistic view of an
Mm.
organization. And so, if we are looking at implementing initiative or a strategy, we can easily connect that strategy uh, right down to all of the operations of the organization and ultimately point it all towards successful execution. Kind of starting, even to start that conversation, an organization first has to look at what are its capabilities, right? And so we can
Yes.
think about our capabilities as I've often talked about it as skills and resources, but what
Mm-hmm.
I'm really saying is our capabilities are what we do. What are all the various things that we have to manage from day to day? And so we can take those capability and as the capabilities as the foundational aspect of what we do,
Mm-hmm.
we can start to measure those first. This approach is really good in being able to identify exactly how effective, how sustainable, how much capacity, how well performing an organization is in its day to day work, in its day to day management of the activities and resources that they have to deploy to make work move forward. It's a step back from, okay, let's just measure how close we are to meeting our objective.
Yeah.
Um, this is a let's get down to the nuts and bolts of what's required to meet the objective, and let's measure that first. So, being able to lay out our capabilities, uh, identifying what those are, and we can utilize a technique called heat mapping where we can kind of put on a color scale those capabilities that are pretty well performing, kind of more on a green end of things, and those that are not performing as well could maybe be an orange or a red color, or capabilities that we don't have but we should have. We can throw those on our capability map, and it gives us a very visual way to quickly identify where we're higher performing, where we're lower performing, and what's missing. And just that as a starting point immediately begins to open the conversation for where can we begin to adapt or make changes to how we're operating to improve our performance around our capabilities, to improve our performance around what we're doing from day to day. It's a powerful way to really start the conversations that need to happen on the ground about how effective we are in our everyday activity as that work effort relates to meeting our long-term objectives. So that's what I'd say. And to add to that, I can't forget the value delivery. I think within our organizations, we speak a lot about objectives, meeting our objectives being our value delivery.
Yeah.
And we may not say it explicitly, but oftentimes when we are working, typically we're primarily focused on let's meet the objective. And while understanding our capabilities is important to being able to reach those objectives, there is also other value that we should be focused on that contributes to being able to achieve the objectives that we've defined for our initiatives or whatever our strategy is. In business architecture, we call these instances of value delivery value streams. And value streams are really just an end-to-end view of what it takes for us to, or the stages that our organization has to transform into in order to meet a very specific, I'll call it an outcome. So with our value streams, what makes them so important to this conversation about success and adapting for success is that each value stream ends with a value proposition. And we can align our value streams and the stages within our value streams, we can align those right to the capabilities in our organization. So if I have an organization whose value delivery is around achieving safety for their clients, okay, well, there are certain actions that have to take place to achieve that value proposition of safe clients. Well, for each stage in that value stream, we can define the capabilities that are necessary. So the actions that our organization must take and the resources that are required, the efforts, all of the pieces that we must manage to take our organization through all of the stages it must go through to ensure that clients are safe. And with our capabilities heat mapped in a way that allows us to see how well they're performing, we then get a picture of how well each stage of our value stream is performing to get to this end goal or this value proposition of safe clients. So immediately upon kind of overlaying our capabilities or mapping together, cross-mapping our value stream stages with our capabilities, we can see how well are we going to do in achieving this ultimate value delivery or value proposition of having safe clients. And again, kind of going back to your question of, how do we adapt? Well, in stage, in the very first stage of our safe clients value stream, I'm seeing we have a lot of deficiencies. Then we already know collectively as an organization, we're going to have trouble consistently meeting this value area of having safe clients. And so now the organization can have the conversations it needs to have that focus directly on what do we need to do to increase the performance of our capabilities so that this value stream stage can be improved and therefore allow us to successfully reach our goal or our value delivery of having safe clients. That is the way that business architecture really starts to support organizations being able to adapt towards being successful and to be able to use their measurements to adapt and regularly assess how well they're doing for better outcomes.
Yeah. That's fascinating because it's clear that business architecture plays like a crucial role in adapting to changing goals, and I think we've always
Yeah.
mentioned that. So building on that idea, Kenyon, in what ways can we use business architecture to ensure that our success measurements are consistently aligned across all levels of organization, from high level strategic goals to specific departmental actions?
Mm. Another great question, because it's really important. It's very, very important for organizations to understand that business architecture is for the entire business. It's for the entire
Mm,
organization. And so that includes not only those that are internal to the organization, but all of
yeah.
its partners and any vendors that it has attached to itself to support its value delivery, to support achieving the mission it has defined for itself. Regardless of how an organization starts utilizing business architecture, and what I mean by that is usually an organization starts using business architecture because there's a very specific use case that they have. And that use case, starts the foundation or the initial development of business architecture or establishing business architecture within an organization. But that use case, while it's narrow in scope, does not narrow what business architecture or the business architect is looking at when it begins to engage with that organization. So to start, when we're talking about ensuring alignment across the organization, when we're thinking about our metrics, we're immediately looking at what is the organization, what is the full scope of the business. And that's where the conversation begins around what are the capabilities within this organization, because that establishing the capabilities really becomes, one, the establishment of not only what the business is doing, right? What is it managing from day to day? But it also takes us back to defining or supporting that common language across the organization. So between developing that capability map and therefore defining language, we have now been able to document exactly what the full scope of the organization looks like. And therefore, as we continue to develop our success measures based on the capability, we are doing it focused on our use case, but still keeping it relevant to the entire organization, right? So it as we build, we're constantly keeping the full scope of the organization in focus. And that's how we ensure that alignment happens and that alignment is retained throughout the delivery of the initiative or whatever the use case is for business architecture to start within an organization. So really important, again, to really drill down for organizations that business architecture is about the full organization and all of the work that it does, because it all impacts.
Oh, thank you for that insight, and it's evident that alignment is really the key to effective delivery and implementation. Now let's look at how we can use business architecture to be more proactive in our approach. So how can we use business architecture to identify and implement leading indicators that predict future success rather than relying solely on lagging indicators of past performance?
Very, very good question. So this is a really good question.
It's $1 million question.
It is. It's a really, really good question, because being able to measure how successful can we be, being able to make that prediction is, everyone wants to, it's like saying, I want to ensure that if we have a goal for prevention, that we can achieve it. And being able to track or measure prevention is so challenging. And so when we're thinking about mission-focused organizations who are often tracking those prevention metrics and trying to predict how well their services are, improving social outcomes, how well their work efforts are reducing or preventing certain, social calamity. How can they do that? Additionally, for any organization, when we're wanting to predict future success, we're also often thinking about how do we predict our financial success and our sustainability. Business architecture, again, becomes a very natural aid in this conversation about predictability as well as future success, because it is focused around ensuring successful execution. And it does that by creating, this organizational transparency, this full organizational alignment, kind of going back to the cross mapping between our value streams and our capabilities. And I talked about how once we've heat mapped our capabilities, which then allows us to heat map our value stages along our value stream, we have a very clear picture that tells us where our organization is right now and being able to successfully achieve the value proposition that we've established. And if we do that for all the value propositions we have within our organization, heat mapping them, aligning the value stages, all of the ways in which our organization must transform in order to achieve the value proposition we have, then we've got a very clear idea of how successful, what are the odds that we are going to be successful. This is why business architecture is so heavily preferred for strategy execution. Because when we have a big picture strategy that's 3-4 years long, and an organization is saying we want to invest in this strategy, they want to be sure that the investment that they're making and the time they're having to input into this strategy delivery will achieve the outcomes that they've set. When we have our value streams identified, when we have our capabilities identified, when we've been able to assess those value streams and capabilities in terms of how well they're performing, what their capacity is, how well they can be sustained throughout the organization based on the organization's existing, resources, to what extent some of those capabilities can be automated, the extent to which the capabilities are important to the organization. So are they overlapping over various areas of the organization, or does it only have one instance, or only occur in one instance in the organization? All of that knowledge that we are able to gain through that heat mapping process between our value streams and capabilities can all be linked directly to big picture strategy, the goals that we have within our strategy, the objectives we've defined for the strategy, and the specific initiatives or course of action that we've decided to take in order to make this strategy work. Being able to link that strategy down to the capabilities in our organization, the value stream, and even more explicitly defining what are the value streams and the capabilities in our organization that are necessary for this strategy to be achieved, immediately, again, provides a very preliminary view of, does this strategy have a chance of working in the organization as it is structured right now? And the answer to that question immediately tells us what's the chance and likelihood of having future success. One of the way in which business architecture is different from other methods of delivering strategy is not only that it through that performance assessment, it doesn't only tell us where our futures, what the odds are for our future success, but it gives us now an opportunity to define what in our organization needs to change, or what initiatives should we deploy in order to make the strategy more likely to be successful. So we've now, greatly increased the likelihood through business architecture that we're going to be successful because we've leveraged our heat mapping techniques, our view of our value streams, our view of our capabilities to learn about ourselves, to learn about the areas that we're weak and also the areas that we're strong in terms of our value delivery. That continuing on that conversation allows us to build the momentum within the organization that then leads us to higher predictability or higher chance of having future success in our organization.
That's an amazing and intriguing perspective on using business architecture for forward-looking metrics.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing your insights on these critical aspects of organizational performance and strategy, Kenyan. As always, it's really, really great to have this opportunity to get to know you as Architects Pillar. And I look forward to discussing more of this with you. So thank you, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you for the opportunity. Take care.